He brought her into his home to be a mother, but she became a monster in the shadows. The woman he married turned cruel to his little girl, a black single dad's nightmare. You think you know who you were sleeping next to. You think you can see the heart of the person you share a bed with. But some evils hide behind a perfect smile, a well-ironed blouse, and a soft voice, waiting until the doors are closed to show their true face. When Donovan returned home early one freezing Tuesday in November, he didn't find a happy family. He found a crime scene of silence and a betrayal so deep it would shatter his world. If you have ever trusted the wrong person with the thing you love most, this story isn't just a warning, it is a reflection of a terrifying reality. Stay with me to see exactly how a father's intuition saved a life and the precise moment the mask finally fell off. The silence in the house was the first thing that hit him. It wasn't the peaceful silence of a resting home, the kind where you can almost hear the dust motes dancing in the sunlight. No, this was a heavy, cold silence. It was the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums and makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. It was 11:30 in the morning on a Tuesday in November. The air outside in Columbus, Ohio was biting, a gray frost covering the lawns and turning the trees into skeletons against the slate sky. But as Donovan stepped through his front door, it felt even colder inside than it did outside. Donovan stood in his entryway, his heavy work boots dripping melting frost onto the mat. His keys were still clutched tight in his hand. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was supposed to be across town at the logistics warehouse, managing a fleet of trucks, dealing with drivers and schedules. But he had left a thick red binder of crucial shipping manifests on the kitchen island. He needed them for a 2 o'clock meeting with the regional director. He hadn't called ahead, he hadn't sent a text. He just drove home thinking he would grab the binder, maybe kiss his wife and daughter, and head back to the grind. He expected to hear the low hum of the television. He expected to smell chicken noodle soup or maybe toast. His 7-year-old daughter, Tiana, had woken up that morning throwing up. It was a nasty stomach bug that had been sweeping through her second-grade class like a wildfire. His wife, Meredith, had graciously offered to call out of her job as a project coordinator to watch her so Donovan wouldn't miss his shift. "Go work," she had told him that morning, smoothing his collar. "I'll take care of our girl." But now, standing in the hallway, the house felt abandoned. Donovan walked further in, his brow furrowed. The thermostat on the wall caught his eye. The screen was blank. It wasn't just set to a low temperature, it was turned off completely. Donovan tapped the glass. Nothing. The house was freezing, likely sitting in the mid-50s. He could see his own breath misting slightly in the air. Why would she turn the heat off in November with a sick child in the house? He turned the corner into the living room, and the confusion deepened.
Meredith was there. She was lying comfortably on the large beige sectional sofa. She was wrapped in the plush, gray, electric-heated blanket Donovan had bought her for Christmas the year before. She was wearing thick wool socks and a heavy sweater. A glass of white wine sat on the coaster beside her, catching the pale light from the window. She was on the phone, her head thrown back, laughing. She sounded happy, relaxed, unburdened. Donovan took a step forward, his boot thudding heavily against the hardwood floor. The sound echoed in the frigid room. Meredith jumped as if she had been shot. She spun around, her hand flailing, nearly knocking over her wine glass. Her eyes went wide, panic flashing through them instantly. It was the look of a child caught with their hand in the cookie jar, but sharper, more desperate. She scrambled to sit up, pulling the heated blanket tighter around her shoulders, shielding herself. "Donovan, you're home early." She put on a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was a plaster smile, tight, nervous, and stretched too thin over her face. She quickly ended the call and tossed her phone onto the cushion. "I forgot my binder," Donovan said. His voice was flat. He didn't return the smile. He didn't move to kiss her. He just stood there, a large man in a high-visibility vest, filling the room with a sudden intense gravity. "Where is Tiana?" Meredith waved a hand dismissively toward the back of the house, her bracelets jingling. "Oh, she's fine, honey. She's resting. I needed a moment. You know how draining it is when they're sick. It's exhausting." Donovan didn't move. He looked at the wine. He looked at the blanket. Then he looked at the dead thermostat. "Why is the heat off, Meredith?" "Oh, that," she laughed, a high-pitched, brittle sound. "It was feeling a bit stuffy in here. I wanted to flush out the germs. Fresh air is good for the immune system, right? Doctors always say to circulate the air." Donovan looked at the heated blanket wrapped around her. He looked at the thick socks. If it was stuffy, why was she bundled up like she was on an Arctic expedition? Why was she drinking wine at 11 in the morning while his daughter was sick? Something was wrong. A knot tightened in his stomach, a primal instinct that every parent knows. It's that voice in the back of your head that screams when the math doesn't add up. He didn't say another word to her. He walked past the living room, heading down the hallway toward Tiana's bedroom. The door was open. The bed was made perfectly. The pillows were fluffed. Tiana wasn't there. He checked the bathroom. Empty. He turned back, his eyes narrowing. Meredith was standing now, blocking the view of the kitchen and the back door. She was wringing her hands together. "Where is she?" Donovan asked. His voice dropped an octave. It wasn't a question anymore. It was a demand. Meredith stammered, her eyes darting around the room looking for an escape route. She's in the sunroom." The sunroom. Donovan felt his blood run cold. The sunroom was an addition built by the previous owners. It was beautiful in the summer, a glass-enclosed space overlooking the garden where they would drink iced tea. But it wasn't insulated. It had no heating vents. It was single-pane glass on 3 sides. In the winter, it was basically a glass box. On a freezing November day like this, it was little more than a refrigerator. He pushed past Meredith. She grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his jacket. "Donovan, wait! She threw up earlier, and I didn't want the smell in the main house. I was just letting her get some fresh air while I cleaned the carpets. You have to understand, vomit smell lingers, and I wanted the house nice for you." He ripped his arm away from her grip with a force that made her stumble back. He didn't speak. He marched to the back door that led to the sunroom. He tried the handle. It was locked. It was locked from the inside, from the house side. He looked through the glass pane of the door. At first, he didn't see her. The room was gray and shadowed. Then he looked down. Curled up on a thin wicker chair in the corner was Tiana. She was wearing only a thin cotton t-shirt and pajama shorts. She wasn't wearing socks. Her knees were pulled up to her chest, and she was hugging herself, shaking so violently that the chair was vibrating against the floor tiles. Next to her, on the freezing floor, was a plastic bowl of red tomato soup. It had gone cold. A film had formed over the top of it, congealed and unappetizing. Donovan didn't think. He didn't breathe. He unlocked the door and threw it open. The blast of cold air that hit him was shocking. It was easily 40 degrees in there. He could see his breath instantly. Tiana looked up. Her skin, usually a rich, warm brown, looked ashy and gray. Her lips had a terrifying purple tint to them. Her eyes were dull, glazed over, filled with a misery that no child should ever know. "Daddy?" she squeaked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Her teeth were chattering so hard the word was broken into pieces. "Daddy?" Donovan scooped her up. She felt like a block of ice against his chest. She was stiff, her muscles locked up from the shivering. He buried her face into his warm flannel shirt, wrapping his large arms around her entire small body, trying to swallow her up in his warmth. "I'm here, baby. I'm here," he whispered into her hair, his voice thick with emotion. She started to cry then, hot tears soaking his collar. "She wouldn't let me in, Daddy. She said I had to finish the soup first, but it was cold. It tasted sour. I couldn't eat it."
Donovan turned around, carrying his frozen daughter back into the main house. His face was wet with his own tears, but his eyes were burning with a fire that could scorch the earth. Meredith was standing in the kitchen, her face pale, her hands trembling.
"We are going to talk about this," Donovan said, his voice low and dangerous. "But first, I have to explain how we got here, because you don't wake up one morning and decide to lock a child in a freezer. This kind of cruelty, it grows. It creeps in slowly, hiding in plain sight until it's too late. To understand the horror of this moment, you have to understand the ghost that lived in this house before Meredith ever arrived. You have to understand the desperation of a man trying to fix a hole in his heart. For the first 5 years of Tiana's life, this home was filled with music. It smelled of cocoa butter, roasted chicken, and lavender. It was filled with the infectious, booming laughter of Donovan's first wife, Keisha. Keisha was the sun. She was warm, vibrant, and undeniably present. She had a way of looking at Donovan that made him feel like he could conquer the world. They were a team. They were supposed to grow old together, sit on the porch in rocking chairs and watch their grandchildren play. But tragedy doesn't always announce itself with a warning. There was no long battle with illness, no hospital bedside vigils where you get to say goodbye. It was a cerebral aneurysm. One Tuesday evening, Keisha was folding laundry, humming a song along with the radio. She complained of a migraine, put a hand to her temple, and collapsed. By the time the ambulance arrived, the light of Donovan's life was gone. Just like that. 1 minute she was there, and the next she was a memory. Donovan was left alone in a silent house with a 5-year-old girl who kept asking when Mommy would wake up. The grief was a heavy blanket that Donovan wore for 2 years. He moved through the world in a fog. He tried to be everything. He was the provider, working long hours at the logistics firm to pay the mortgage. He was the cook, burning grilled cheese sandwiches until he learned better. He was the hairstylist, fumbling with combs and oils, his large, clumsy fingers trying to replicate the intricate braids Keisha used to do with such ease. He was a good dad, but he was tired. Deep in his bones, he was exhausted, and he was lonely. Then he met Meredith. It was at a corporate mixer in downtown Columbus. Meredith was different from anyone Donovan had dated before. She was pale, with sharp blue eyes, blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, and a very structured way of speaking. She worked as a project coordinator, and she carried an air of extreme efficiency. Donovan was drawn to that order. His life had been chaos since Keisha passed. Laundry piles, takeout boxes, mismatched socks. Meredith seemed like the solution. She was calm. She was organized. She seemed like she had life figured out. When he introduced her to Tiana, Meredith was perfect. She didn't just say hello. She brought a coloring book and high-quality markers. She knelt down on the floor, a parenting trick Donovan had read about, to get to Tiana's eye level. "Hello, Tiana," she had said softly, her blue eyes crinkling at the corners. "Your daddy tells me you're an artist. I'd love to see what you can create." Tiana, who had been shy and withdrawn since the funeral, actually smiled. She showed Meredith her drawings.
That night, Meredith whispered to Donovan over dinner, "She's precious, Donovan, truly, but she looks a little lost. She just needs a woman's touch, a mother figure to guide her." Those words hooked him. He wasn't looking for a wife for himself. He was looking for a mother for Tiana. He wanted to fill the void. He wanted to fix the broken family. He wanted to give his daughter the one thing he couldn't provide, a mother's love. So he ignored the red flags. He ignored the way Meredith sometimes stared a bit too long at them when they were in public, as if she were studying a species she didn't understand. He ignored the way she stiffened when his family came over for barbecues, complaining later that the music was too loud or the voices too boisterous. He ignored the way she never really wanted to hold Tiana's hand unless Donovan was watching.
He told himself love was colorblind. He told himself she was just adjusting to a new culture, a new family dynamic. He told himself she was trying. They married in a small courthouse ceremony 6 months later. Meredith moved into their home, and for the first few weeks it seemed like the right decision. The house was clean. Dinner was on the table at 6. Tiana's clothes were folded and put away. But the nightmare didn't begin with shouting or violence. It began with erasure. It began with Meredith slowly, methodically scrubbing away everything that made Tiana who she was. Donovan worked long hours, leaving the house at 6 in the morning and returning after 7 in the evening. This left Tiana in Meredith's care for the mornings and evenings. The first sign was the hair. Keisha used to spend Sunday evenings sitting between Tiana's legs, carefully detangling and braiding her thick, beautiful, tight curls. It was a ritual. It was love in action. It took hours, but they talked and laughed the whole time. After Keisha passed, Donovan learned to do it himself. He wasn't great at it, but he tried. He bought the right conditioners, he watched YouTube tutorials, he made it their bonding time. 3 weeks after the wedding, Donovan came home to find Tiana sitting on the couch, her head covered in a thick wool beanie. She looked miserable. He kissed Meredith hello, then went to Tiana. "Hey, princess, why are you wearing a hat inside? It's warm in here." Before Tiana could answer, Meredith walked in with a glass of wine. Her voice was sharp, annoyed. "It was just too unmanageable, Donovan," she sighed, sounding like a martyr who had just run a marathon. "I tried to comb it this morning before school, but it was a rat's nest. I couldn't get the brush through it. I couldn't send her out looking unkempt. It reflects badly on us. It reflects badly on me." Donovan frowned, a pit forming in his stomach. "What did you do?" "I handled it," Meredith said breezily, taking a sip of her wine. "I took her to a salon, a professional one." Donovan reached out and pulled the beanie off Tiana's head. He gasped. Tiana's hair, her crown, the hair that looked just like her mother's, had been chemically straightened and chopped into a short, severe bob that didn't suit her face at all. Her scalp looked red and angry. The smell of harsh chemicals wafted up, burning Donovan's nose. It smelled like sulfur and burning.
"Meredith," Donovan turned to his wife, his voice trembling with shock. "Why did you do this without asking me? You can't just put chemicals in her hair. She's 7 years old." Meredith's face flushed red. She crossed her arms defensively. "I am the mother figure now, aren't I? I can't deal with all those oils and grease and hours of braiding. It's messy and it takes too long. This is clean. This is presentable. Do you want her to look neat for school or not? Or do you want her looking wild?" Donovan looked at Tiana. Tears were pooling in her big brown eyes. She touched her hair tentatively, as if she didn't recognize herself. "She said my hair was dirty," Tiana whispered, her voice trembling. "She said it smelled like old food. She told the lady to cut it all off." Donovan's heart broke, but he made the mistake that so many people make in these situations. He rationalized it. He thought, maybe Meredith just doesn't understand. She's white. She doesn't know about our hair texture. She doesn't understand the cultural significance. It's just ignorance. I just need to teach her. He was wrong. It wasn't ignorance. It was disdain. It was a rejection of Tiana's very essence. But he let it slide. He bought Tiana a satin scarf for sleeping and tried to soothe her scalp with aloe, telling Meredith they would discuss hair care protocols later. He didn't want to fight. He wanted peace. If you are listening to this and you have ever had someone try to erase your identity under the guise of helping you, you know how much that hurts. It eats away at your confidence. It makes you feel like you are inherently wrong. If this part of the story makes your blood boil, take a second to hit that like button. Let's show Tiana she is beautiful just the way she is. Over the next few months, Tiana began to shrink. The vibrant, bubbly girl who loved singing along to the radio became a ghost in her own home. She stopped drawing. She stopped singing. She spent most of her time in her room.
When Donovan was around, Meredith was sugary sweet. She would plate Tiana's dinner and ask about her day in a high, sing-song voice. But Donovan started noticing things. Tiana would flinch whenever Meredith moved too quickly. She would go silent whenever Meredith walked into the room. "She's just adjusting," Meredith would tell Donovan in bed at night, resting her head on his chest. "She's manipulative, honey. Kids at this age try to pit parents against each other. She knows you're soft because of her mom. She's playing you. You need to be firmer with her." Because he was tired, and because he wanted to believe his marriage wasn't a mistake, he tried to follow Meredith's lead. He thought maybe he was spoiling her. Maybe he was too soft. He didn't see what happened when he left for work. He didn't see the mornings. Meredith would cook herself scrambled eggs with spinach and toast with avocado. But for Tiana, she would make instant oatmeal with water, not milk, and no sugar. "You need to watch your weight," Meredith would tell the 7-year-old girl, who was already thin as a rail. "Sugar makes you hyper."
He didn't see the bathroom routine. Meredith had thrown away the rich cocoa butter lotion Keisha used to buy for Tiana's skin. She replaced it with a cheap, drying bar soap. Tiana's skin became ashy, dry, and itchy. She would scratch until she bled. "Look at her," Meredith would say to Donovan when he came home, pointing at Tiana scratching her arm. "She's always scratching. It's a nervous tic. She's anxious. She needs therapy, not lotion." The gaslighting was masterful. Meredith made Donovan doubt his own daughter. She made him think Tiana was the problem. She made him feel like a bad father for not disciplining her enough. And that brings us back to that Tuesday in November. Tiana had woken up vomiting. She was pale and weak. Donovan was ready to call his boss and stay home. He had his phone in his hand. But Meredith had insisted. No, honey, you go. You have that big meeting. Go provide for us. I'll take care of her. I'll make her soup and keep her warm." Donovan believed her. He kissed her cheek, grabbed his keys, and walked out the door, grateful that he had a partner to share the load. But the moment his truck pulled out of the driveway, the mask fell off. Meredith didn't want to be a nurse. She didn't want to clean up vomit. She viewed Tiana not as a child who needed comfort, but as a contamination, a biological hazard that was invading her clean, quiet sanctuary. She waited until 10 o'clock. Then she marched Tiana to the back of the house. "You are going to sit in the sunroom until you are better," Meredith had said, handing her a bowl of canned soup and a spoon. "I can't have you vomiting on the hardwood. The cold will kill the bacteria." "But I'm cold," Tiana had cried, shivering in her thin pajamas. "Can I have a blanket?" "No," Meredith snapped. "Blankets hold germs. Put on a brave face, and don't come out until you finish that soup." She locked the door. She heard Tiana crying on the other side, begging to be let in. Meredith ignored her. She went to the living room, turned off the central heating to save money on the electric bill since she was using her electric blanket, poured herself a glass of wine, and turned on the TV to catch up on her favorite talk shows. She sat there for 90 minutes, while her stepdaughter froze a few rooms away. And now Donovan was standing in the living room, holding his shivering daughter in his arms. The rage that was building inside him wasn't hot and fiery. It was cold. It was precise. It was the kind of rage that clarifies everything in a single second. It burned away the fog he had been living in for months. He walked over to the sofa. Meredith backed away, her hands up, the wineglass forgotten on the table. "Donovan, you're overreacting. I was just managing the situation." "Get up," Donovan said. His voice was a low rumble like thunder in the distance before a storm. "Excuse me?" Meredith blinked, confused by his tone. "I said, get up."
Meredith hesitated, then stood up, clutching her sweater. Donovan grabbed the heated blanket she had been using. He ripped the cord from the wall socket with a violent jerk.
He sat on the sofa and wrapped the warm electric blanket tightly around Tiana, covering her freezing limbs, wrapping her like a burrito. He rubbed her back, trying to transfer his own body heat to her, trying to stop the violent shaking. "You locked my sick child in a freezing glass box while you sat here drinking wine under a heated blanket," Donovan said. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since they met. He didn't see the organized, efficient woman anymore. He saw a monster. Meredith's face twisted. She realized the nice guy act wasn't going to work anymore. The tears she usually used to manipulate him wouldn't work. So she decided to tell the truth. She decided to let the ugliness out. "She is difficult," Meredith screamed, her voice cracking. "You spoil her. She's needy and she's always watching me with those big, sad eyes. She's not my daughter, Donovan. I didn't sign up to be a nursemaid to a child who isn't even like me." The silence that followed was heavy, heavier than the silence when he first walked in. The racial undertone that Donovan had tried so hard to ignore, the cultural disdain, the othering of his daughter, it was now hanging in the air, undeniable and ugly. "You're right," Donovan said, his voice deadly calm. He stood up, still holding Tiana's hand. "She is not like you. Thank the heavens above, she is nothing like you. She is kind, she is beautiful, and she is loyal. And you are leaving." Meredith scoffed, crossing her arms. "This is my house, too. We are married. You can't just kick me out. I have rights. I have tenants' rights." "I have cameras," Donovan lied. He didn't have cameras inside the house. He had a Ring doorbell, but nothing inside. But he saw the blood drain from Meredith's face. He saw the calculation in her eyes turn to fear. "I have cameras that recorded everything," Donovan continued, bluffing with the confidence of a poker player holding a royal flush. "I have footage of you marching her into that room. I have footage of you locking the door. I have footage of you sitting here laughing while she cried. If you are not out of this house in 10 minutes, I am calling the police and reporting you for child endangerment. And I will post that video everywhere. Your job, your friends, your family, they will all see exactly what you did today." Meredith looked at his face. She looked for a crack, for a sign of weakness, but she found none. The man she thought she could manipulate was gone. In his place was a father protecting his cub. She didn't argue. She didn't apologize. She grabbed her purse and her coat. She didn't even go to the bedroom to pack a bag. She fled out the front door, the slam echoing through the house like a gunshot. Donovan didn't move for a long time. He just held Tiana, rocking her back and forth until the shivering stopped and her breathing slowed.
"I'm sorry, Daddy," Tiana whispered, her voice raspy. "I didn't finish the soup. I tried."
Donovan squeezed his eyes shut, letting a hot tear slide down his cheek. "No, baby, don't you ever apologize. I am the one who is sorry. I let the wolf in the door. I was so busy trying to find you a mother that I forgot to protect you from a stranger." He carried her to the bathroom. He started the warm water, testing it carefully with his elbow. He sat on the edge of the tub and washed the sweat and sickness off her. He found a bottle of gentle, moisturizing shampoo in the back of the cabinet, one Meredith had hidden behind the cleaning supplies, and he washed her hair, massaging her scalp gently. He made her hot cocoa with real milk and extra chocolate. He made her toast with butter and cinnamon, just the way Keisha used to make it. Later that night, Tiana was sleeping in Donovan's bed, safe and warm under the heavy duvet. Donovan sat in the chair beside her, watching her chest rise and fall. He felt a profound sense of failure, but also a strange sense of relief. The house was quiet again, but the heavy, cold feeling was gone. The evil had left the building. Tiana shifted in her sleep and opened her eyes. She looked at him, her eyes clear now.
"Is she coming back?" she whispered. "No, baby," Donovan said, reaching out to hold her hand. "Never. It's just us, and I promise you, on my life, I will never let anyone treat you like that again." "It's okay, Daddy," she said softly, squeezing his large hand with her small fingers. "I knew you'd come. Mommy told me." Donovan froze. A chill went down his spine, but it wasn't a cold chill. It was warm. "Mommy?" "In my dream," Tiana said, her eyes drifting close again. "While I was in the cold room, I fell asleep in the chair. Mommy came. She felt warm like the sun. She said, 'Hold on, baby. Daddy is coming. Daddy is on his way.'" Donovan put his head in his hands and wept silently. He realized then that he didn't need a replacement mother to make a home. He didn't need a woman to validate his family. He just needed to be the father Tiana deserved, present, aware, and fiercely protective. The divorce was messy, but Donovan didn't care. He gave Meredith whatever she wanted just to get her signature on the papers. He wanted her out of their lives completely. He sold the house. It had too many bad memories now. The sunroom, the hallway, the kitchen, it all felt tainted. He and Tiana moved to a condo closer to the city. It was smaller, but it was warm. It was near a park where Tiana could run free, and right down the street from a salon that specialized in natural hair, run by women who treated Tiana's curls like spun gold. It took time. Healing isn't a straight line. It took months for Tiana to stop flinching when people raised their voices. It took a year for her hair to grow back to its former glory. But eventually, the light returned to her eyes. She started drawing again. She started singing again.
Donovan learned a valuable lesson that day. He learned that a happy home isn't about having a mom and a dad in a traditional sense. It's about having safety. It's about having love that doesn't hurt. It's about peace. We often ignore our intuition because we don't want to be rude. We don't want to be difficult. Or, like Donovan, we don't want to be alone. Donovan ignored the small signs, the hair, the comments, the stiffness, because he wanted the fairy tale. But the fairy tale was a lie. The reality was a nightmare. Trust your gut. If someone makes your child shrink, if someone makes your child silent, they do not belong in your life, no matter how clean they keep the house or how good they look on paper. Donovan and Tiana are doing well today. Tiana's 10 now, and she wears her hair in big, beautiful braids with colorful beads. And Donovan, he's still single, and he's perfectly happy about it. He knows now that he and Tiana are a complete family all on their own. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe there's a single dad out there or a single mom who is ignoring the red flags because they're lonely. Send this to them. You might just save a life. And tell me in the comments, what is the biggest red flag you've ever ignored in a relationship? Let's talk about it. Until next time, keep your eyes open and hold your loved ones close.